Hello, uh, I am the guy that you asked to review your video. I am going to be going over every single possible detail I can about how you can improve on the hero that you choose to play. And it seems here that you seem to be playing Genji for this game. I will give you my best tips I possibly can. My current rank on my Genji one trick account is 3627. So I've hit mastered as just playing Genji only. I can tell you right now, it's not an easy pathway, but if you truly want to play as Genji, and if you have the dedication to continue playing as Genji, there are a lot of things that you have to kind of get used to very quickly whenever you're playing the hero, because Genji is a very steep learning curve and a very steep mechanical based hero as well. He requires quite a bit of mechanical skill and also a lot of patience to be able to really master. Um, in a lot of ways, him, Sombra, and Doomfist are all very similar in that they require a lot of mechanics and a lot of game sense to really understand when and how to attack people. And then him and Sombra carry the most similarities whenever it comes to actual mechanically, rather than game sense mechanically, because Genji is useless without his ult. If you want to basically carry as Genji or do a lot with Genji, you need to make sure you're constantly building ult. You need to make sure that uh, your Genji is um, safe, and also whenever you're using blade, you use it properly. You never just pop it whenever. You just kind of take and choose your moments, and then whenever you find the opening that you're looking for, you then take your moment. Same thing with Sombra. Is exact same thing with Sombra. That's why I say that they're very similar in character playstyle, because Sombra relies heavily on her ult, and she relies on poke damage. So does Genji. Genji also relies on poke damage. He doesn't have very much mid fight potential. He has a lot of uh, in between ult fight potential, because he can build ult incredibly quick if you know how to do it properly. So I'll be watching you, and I'll be seeing if you're doing the rights, the wrongs of a Genji player, and I'll be seeing what exactly you need to personally improve on to make it to either the next rank or the next two ranks. Um, if you really, really want to get better with this character, uh, please try to take in consideration everything I say. I mean, sometimes I can be a little harsh. I can be a little mean, because I am. I mean, I come from a higher level of play, and I've been at a higher level of play ever since season 3 of Overwatch. So I kind of expect that whenever I see specific um, faults, or even just like plain bad positioning, usually that's incredibly easy to fix. It's just a mental thing. So whenever I see incredibly bad positioning, or even mechanical skill, you kind of need to just overcome your own barriers, and that's more of something that I can't really help so much with. I can kind of just tell you when you're doing it wrong, what you're doing wrong. Other than that, it's up to you whether or not you actually want to improve on those specific parts. Game sense is more of something like you might not have knowledge of, like you might not actually know about it. I know a lot of people that play Overwatch, especially if they play Overwatch a long time. They probably watch Overwatch League. Overwatch League is a great place to learn how to not play Overwatch. um, it's a very weird weird thing that I'm saying this, but uh, the Overwatch League is a very refined form of Overwatch, meaning you will never see it inside of competitive play. Even in GM and top 500, you will never see Overwatch League level of play. It's just unlikely, because you can't group up in a six stack inside of GM or top 500. You can only two stack now because of the new rules. So to expect what they do in Overwatch League to work in normal comp is actually incredibly, incredibly, um, I wouldn't use the word ignorant, but it's more of like misleading, right? Because you would think that the pro level of play is probably the best level of play because everybody can do that. Well, it's not true, especially on console. There are so many things that limit to you on console compared to whenever you're playing on PC. So you need to kind of take that into consideration, take it to heart that everything you see on Overwatch League should not be used inside of actual competitive Overwatch, especially low levels of Overwatch play. You need to take more into um, what you can personally do yourself that would help your team, because this game is very much a game where you can carry. You 100% can carry on a team. I hate the idea of Elo Hell because, in my personal opinion, it does not exist. I have never been stuck in a single rank, even whenever I started new accounts that started in silver, or even in lower like bronze or below 500 SR. I never found severe issues to where I got stuck in a rank for longer than, I'd say, a day or two on those specific accounts. So those quote unquote Smurf accounts, um, from that level all the way up to Masters or GM. It only took me a few days to even get out of those ranks. Even if I did get quote unquote stuck, it was more of like it just got progressively harder to fully carry. But as long as you play to your strengths and you understand the game a little better and you're winning more than you're losing, usually you should climb relatively quickly. The only time you really get stuck is not because of a teammate issue problem, but it's more of a self problem. So I'm glad that you asked me to review your video because I think you know for a fact you need to improve, but you don't know what to improve on. I feel like that's what you want me to, what you wanted me to review on. I'm not too sure because I didn't really talk to you about it and ask you too many questions, but I feel like that's the reason why you want me to review your video, or you want me to review, your gameplay video, to kind of help you understand what you need to do better. And if that's not what it is, and you feel like you deserve a higher rank, that's a very bad mindset to have. You need to personally think about what you've been doing wrong compared to what your teammates been doing wrong. Because again, this may be a team-based game, as it is, a 6v6 and not a 1v1. It is a 6v6. You got to remember that this game is still an FPS game, meaning personal skill can output a lot more than teammate defaults or teammate deficits. Personal skill can still outweigh that, like heavily. Um, Especially in a game where you don't have one life, you have multiple lives. This is very very self-evident whenever it comes to FPS games. So let's see. I know I was rambling on a lot, but I just wanted to kind of push apart the main stakes of what it takes to be a good Overwatch player and what it takes to have a good mindset when playing Overwatch. Um, I see that you are grouped here with three other people. Just remember that whenever you do get to higher ranks, you can't expect to always be able to four stack or even higher stack. In my personal opinion, I would never four stack, three stack. Sometimes I won't even two stack. It's so much easier to solo queue on on roll queue or even open queue. In my opinion, it's actually incredibly easy um, to solo queue. All you have to do is that you have to think about yourself individually. Don't try to think about your team, because the reason why I say that is I don't know if these people are your friends or not. I don't know if they're like random people that you just kind of grouped with, or anything like that, right? I don't personally know you that well, but if they're randoms, think of it like this, okay? Whenever you group, I just want to. I'm sorry. I'm talking a lot before I even look at before I look at your videos. But I want to give you just like actual tips that I don't think a lot of people actually talk about too much. Because if you've ever watched your Overwatch or anything like that, some of the tips that Frito says are okay, but he has only done one Smurf account. Whenever I have personally done over 15 Smurf accounts. So I have a very big experience into what it takes for you to go from such and such rank all the way up to a really high rank. Um, and I never group. I've never once stacked. In fact, the only time I've ever stacked in a game is when I'm playing with my friends. In fact, I usually play on my friends on lower accounts because they're lower ranked. None of them are as high as I am. So I always stack with them on lower ranks just to kind of have fun and not really, worry about too much about winning. But even whenever I do stack, I only two stack. And it's one of my friends, Cosmic, and we still carry every game. Because I know for a fact Cosmic can actually get better at the game as time goes on. He just has mechanical issues with his actual physical remote. Like his actual remote controller is literally broken. He has really bad stick drift on it, but he still hit diamond even with a really bad stick drift. That's why I say for a fact that Elo Hell, especially in console, really doesn't exist that much because it's more of like what can you individually do that will carry your gameplay. He plays McCree. Like understand that. He plays McCree and he has stick drift on his right stick. The stick that you aim with. He has severe stick drift on that. And he can still hit headshots and still get to diamond by just playing McCree, an incredibly mechanically based hero. And he still hit diamond from being gold. He was gold when I first met him, but I taught him a little bit how to play the game because I really like the way that he talked and acted because he's a wacky dude. Um, but yeah, enough about my personal life. What's it called? When I talk about don't stack, the reason why I say that is because I don't know if Frito from your Overwatch actually touched up on this or not, but it's actually very commonly, very commonly, almost 85% of the time to 90% of the time, whenever you stack with more people, more than one person, you will run into other stacks. Uh, Usually being the exact same amount of people that you usually group with. So if you group with two people, you're going to run into a three stack. If you group with three people, you're going to run into a four stack, and so on and so forth, right? Six stacks versus six stacks, five stacks versus five stacks, or sometimes five stacks versus two stacks and three stacks. So you got to remember that the enemy team is always going to be stacked if you're stacked. So just remember that. The reason why that's super important is because say these people are randos, and they're not your friends, right? And let's say you won like one game together and you decide to group, right? Um, let's say that your team only clicked for that one game because that was their best map. That was your partner's best map. And that's why y'all click so well is because that map was so good for them that they were confident they were going to win on that map, and y'all did win on that map. Even if it felt like you rolled them, you got to remember that uh, usually whenever it comes to those specific types of matches, you can't always think to yourself, "Oh wow, we just rolled because we're just so much better." Um, Usually in Overwatch, there is a deficit whenever it comes to teammates versus enemies, right? If you solo queued into these people, um, if you solo queued into these people, then you got to realize every single person on the enemy team also was solo queued, right? Or maybe like one two stack, but that was it. But they're all solo queued mostly. Um, so every single one of those people that you're going to be going against are all going to be on their own mindset. So that's what the deficit is, right? Let's say that your mindset going into the game was positive, but somebody on the enemy team or two people on the enemy teams was very negative when going into the game, right? Because this game can get pretty toxic and can get pretty negative. So let's say that two people on the enemy team were negative. Don't touch my fucking shit. Two people on the enemy team were negative. I will literally break your arm, dude. Don't touch my shit. Um, what's it called? Let's say two people on the enemy team were coming into the game with a negative mindset, and that's the reason why they lost, right? Was because they were thinking negatively the entire game, and they couldn't aim properly, they couldn't position themselves properly, they couldn't get into the right position with their partners, and that's why they lost, right? Because their mindset wasn't clear. So just because you queued into that lobby where you rolled the enemy team because they couldn't think clearly does not mean that the team that you were necessarily playing with was good, right? It could just again it's just a deficit, meaning like you don't actually know that, but that could be the reason why. So that's another reason why I say don't stack is because you actually don't know the circumstances that the enemy team was going on with, like somebody being super toxic, just talking the entire time, yelling at everybody even though they're dying the entire time. So, you know, don't I always say don't stack because those particular two reasons. The fact that you're going always against other enemy teams that are always also stacked, or you could have had an enemy deficit where the enemy team was having complications or issues, and that's why it seemed like you rolled them. Um, but it's a lot easier to carry as a solo queue than it is as a stack. That it's just a fact. It's just a fact when playing Overwatch. Because if you run it, because the reason why you don't want to run into an enemy stack, actually, let me go back on my first point. The reason why you want to don't want to run into an enemy stack. Let's say that stack that you're going against has been playing all day, right? And you just barely got this stack. You barely got this 4 stack, right? But that enemy stack has been playing all day together. Like they've been just crushing it. They have like 13, 14 wins for today, right? And they're just crushing the ladder, right, as a stack. But you just barely grouped with your stack, and you're having to queue into those people. Your team doesn't have as much communication as compared to their team, where they've just been rolling the entire time, and you're queued into them. Your team's not gonna have enough communication. Your team's gonna blame everybody else or blame each other, or they're just gonna get frustrated, like why are we not winning? Because we rolled last time. Like you're gonna get frustrated and you're gonna start to get angry and start to get negative, right? Um, you have to think about that. That's all I gotta say. You just have to think about that. That's why I say stacking is really bad. Yes, I know sometimes solo queuing can really suck because people sometimes are not in voice chat, they're not talking, or they're not in voice chat, they're not talking, they're doing their own thing, they're not listening to your call outs. I can understand that. That can get a little frustrating, but just remember, if you are doing well enough, you don't have to worry about your team. If you are doing well enough to where your team won't die because you killed enough people or you did enough for your team to where your team could definitely win, then you're carrying. Most of the times when I hear people say that they're carrying all the time in gold and plat and low diamond, they send me these clips and they feel like they're doing good because like 1 or 2 times they got insane kills, like ridiculous, like 4, 5 kills on the enemy team, and they're like, dude, I was carrying that game, but I still lost. But they only did that twice throughout the entire match, and these matches last very long, and kills like that happen in seconds, while the matches last minutes. So if you're not continuously or not, um, what's it called? Sorry, continuously or try to come up with the words real quick. Continuously or repeatedly doing that every single team fight. Consistently doing that every single team fight, then you're not carrying. You had a pop off moment. Your daddy wants you to go shut his driver's side door. Okay. But you had a pop off moment, right? So you popped off for that small amount of time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you carried, right? Those are called pop-offs. It's not called carrying. Um, there's an actual difference. Um, but yeah, enough of me talking. Enough of me talking. Before I even review, I just want to give those tips to you, just so that you have something to think about whenever you're queuing up for your next game. And I don't really know about before you even queued or anything like that. If you sat and just watched videos, or if you were warming up the entire time. Genji, you need to keep warm hands. So what I recommend to you is the Hanamura Blade practice range, where you practice Dragon Blade with Genji. I use it all the time whenever I'm playing Genji. I use it all the time to practice and warm up while I'm voice crack, while I'm waiting for my match to start. Right, when I'm playing Genji, I always go to the Hanamura practice range. Just something you should think of. Okay, now that enough talking, we're gonna go into this gameplay. We're gonna figure out what you need to do specifically to help out your gameplay. Okay. Um, there was something I already saw because I kind of watched this already a little bit before I actually did my review um, of your VOD that you sent me or that you posted, and it's the fact that you have X as your jump button still, or at least I think you do, because the way that you're aiming, and I know for a fact it's about to come up right here when you're about to aim at this Reinhardt, that I really started to see it, that I think you still have X as your jump button. And that's a problem. That's actually a really big problem, especially when it comes to Genji. Um, Jumping and aiming and shooting at the same time is very important with Genji because you jump a lot. So you always jump, you always double jump because you're trying to be unpredictable, right? You're trying to make sure that the enemy team can't hit you every single time, can't shoot you every single time because you're not always on the ground, you're not always sitting in one spot, you're kind of just moving all over the place, right? Um, but whenever you have X still as your jump button, you're having to remove your finger from your right trigger stick to actually physically jump, then move it back, and then jump, and then move it back to aim and jump and aim and jump and aim and jump when you have X as your jump. It is very, very detrimental to whenever you're playing Genji because you need to be able to aim and track while jumping. Because sometimes whenever I'm watching you, you're just passively aiming and letting your aim assist kind of take hold while you're jumping and shooting because it isn't smooth. It's very choppy, and you're missing a lot of your shots because of that. If you had it to where uh, L2 or L1 was your jump rather than X, it'd be a lot easier for you. Um, Personally, what I do is I have L1 as my jump. I know for a fact you have L1 as your dash. You could easily set uh, your either left stick or your right stick. I would choose right stick. Right stick click. Right when you click click into it, it does it. I know for a fact you probably have right stick click as your melee, but uh, Swift Strike is a lot more important than melee. You could set melee to something else. So you could actually set melee to X. Melee is melee to X is not a bad thing actually. Um, but you need to change your buttons around a little bit to where Genji is actually a lot more fluid when you're using him because you're using him with default settings. I think you're using with like default um, key bindings, and it's very hard to play Genji like that unless you play Claw. And depending on sorry, um, showing as your aim is not tracking like and very choppy, I'm guessing you're not playing Claw. I'm guessing you're playing the normal controller playstyle, and you have X as your jump. You just need to switch that. That's just a must when you're playing Genji on console. Um, but yeah, and also you play very aggressively as Genji, which is not. I touched on this before. I think I touched on it a bit too much because like it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also not great because as you see here, you played aggressively and you got slept. Um, you should have got punished for being that far forward, but since the enemy team seems like they can't even aim at you, you didn't get punished for it. So the fact that you're playing overly aggressive meant nothing to them because you weren't actually doing damage to them either. Um, The only person I ever did damage to was that Junkrat. Meanwhile, you've just been shooting into a shield the entire time and not doing that much damage. I know you're probably trying to poke past it and probably try to break it. But as Genji, try to like climb up walls to kind of shoot over shields. You don't want to be shooting into a shield because it gives you no value. It gives you no ult charge. Genji again relies a lot on ult charge. You want to build that up the quickest so that way you can get Dragon Blade and then just straight kill everybody because Dragon Blade is your kill utensil. Your shurikens are just not as great at doing it. But let's continue. Right there, as I said, it's very choppy. You're not really tracking because I can tell you're using X as your jump button. Another example, you being too aggressive, like I said, you just kind of dashed forward. Oh, that was another thing. Uh, Dash can be used as an escape. You don't have to just use it to commit suicide like you're doing. You could use dash as an escape. You could have turned easily to your right side, right backside, and then dashed into your team. Dashed into your team and got heals rather than dying right here. But mistakes are mistakes. I mean, like I'm not gonna hammer that too much because I do understand that you are gold and game sense issue is probably one of your biggest issues is game sense because uh, game sense is very much a factor into why a lot of people stay into a rank because if you play overly aggressive and you don't know it, you end up dying and you kind of like question yourself like what did I do wrong there? I didn't even feel like I did anything wrong. I just kind of did what I thought I should have done. And it's just not right, right? Um, or if you don't be aggressive enough and you're too passive and you do no damage and you don't do anything and your team starts dying, then you start blaming your team because you're wondering like, oh, I didn't die, so why did everybody else die, right? It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that particular like game sense issue. That's something that could easily be worked on. You just got to understand when to be aggressive and when to not be aggressive, and when to be the aggressor and when to be the defender of somebody else. That's just what Overwatch is all about. It's all about back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You just kind of have to understand when and where to do it, and not just try to do it at all times because it's going to end up killing you and hurting your team a lot more than actually helping. Okay, first talking points onto your ult that you just did there. Um, it wasn't very optimal. I mean, like, okay, I know this is gonna sound like a weird thing to say to like a low rank player, like not optimal. What do you want me to be like Necros? I mean, like, whenever it came to how you use your blade, it was very sloppy. It was very very sloppy. That's another reason why I said to use the Hanamura blade training because it actually teaches you how to go from target to target to target to target that are distance out at different distances. Um, you dashed into the middle of their team rather than dashing up using blade and then dashing into them because you got to remember what's called blade resets your dash, right? It resets your cooldowns. Um, Usually the play is always dash up and then dash down. The main reason why you do that is because and always save a double jump. Always save your double jump. The reason why you do that is because it makes yourself a lot less unpredictable because and a lot easier to see all the targets so you can look at the one that you want to kill, dash into them, and then turn around, strike them, and then kill them. If you're being damaged with Fernando, obviously. If you're not, then it takes two swings. But um, that's the reason why you do that. The reason why you want to swift strike up and then swift strike down onto the target, so you can actually choose your targets rather than swift striking through the entire team, like you saw there. You got slept. Um, you should have got punished. I'm gonna say this every time when I see a huge mistake like this. You should have got punished for that. This is a low rank, so I understand it's not as understandable like, oh, he's sleeping, it's easy kill. Um, I understand that this is lower rank and people don't really understand that, but that is what you just did right there would have costed your team. if they actually fell through with it, right? Because you only killed one and you used ult. If you would have died with only killing one, they would have been up. Um, because the Ana slept you, and she still remained alive. So that was the biggest problem I had with that particular blade, was the fact that you dashed right into the middle of them rather than making yourself a little less unpredictable, um, by staying in the air and then choosing your target. In fact, you could have killed the Ana first because you were being damage boosted. You could have killed the Ana first, so that way she wouldn't have any chance to sleep you. Um, and then you could have chose maybe Ash as your next target. But the way that you did it right there would have costed you a lot more than you would have gained. But I'm guessing it's more of just like a game sense issue, to where you don't really understand like the true capabilities of everybody's cooldowns on the enemy team, because what they could have easily did there was anti you as you slept, and then Ana or Ash could have looked at you and then shot you and killed you. Um, because you would have been able to you couldn't be healed because if she antied you, and then the Ash could have just one tapped you after that because you would receive no healing. So you got to kind of think about what the entire enemy team has. You know for a fact that they have Ana because the Ana has slept you previously, so you have to know how to play around that as well as playing around the sleep. Because if you kind of just dash or run into it, it makes the Ana's job a lot easier. You want to make the job Ana's job a lot harder as much as possible, which is why you dash in the air and save a double jump. The Ana looks at you and tries to sleep you. You use your double jump. You jump over the sleep. Then you dash into the Ana and you kill her. But again, it was a decent enough blade to where you did make a play, but you got to realize the specific things that are going to cost you later on in higher ranks. Um, it just worked. Again, it worked. It worked, and it probably shouldn't have, but it did. So as I said before, like they have Ana. You see the Ana. You know for a fact her cooldowns are completely gone or completely up again because she just came back from spawn. She hasn't used any of her cooldowns for any reason, and you kind of just dash into her and she just sleeps. You make her job a lot easier for her. Try not to do that. In fact, you probably could have remained deflecting and probably would have slept Ana herself because she looked like she was already about to sleep even before you dashed. Um, but yeah. Sorry, I had to pause it there because I had to go see if I had to do something. Okay, this was one of the other problems I really had with or one of the issues I see was your spacing with Genji is not great. Um, you're getting way too close to enemies that could easily do a lot of damage to you. Roadhog and Zarya, especially. The Roadhog play was okay because you at least had deflect up, right? And you did have dash back, so if he did try to do some shenanigans and try to hooking you, you could easily just dash back and you wouldn't be able to do it. Um, but this Zarya right here, you can't exactly do the same. You can't exactly deflect that beam because it's a beam. and she was already pretty hard charge, but you chose to target her. And I pointed this out, but you chose to target her at this distance, which you were just a little bit further back. I think you were just like right back here, right behind this like white line, and you move forward to get in range to try doing damage to her with your fan, but she was already high charge, and then you hit her bubbles more and continued to build this beam and ran into it rather than staying back over here behind this wall where you're incredibly safe. You're safe behind this wall. She can't hurt you. Um, and you could have fired right down range at him, right at Soldier, to help your team. Because Soldier just killed somebody. Hold up. Yeah, he just killed your Zen, making him a primary target. You should definitely target that Soldier since he kind of just killed somebody. And you don't want him killing any more people, so it's your job as a DPS to take that duel. Not to look at the enemy Zarya, who can do tons of damage to you. You're to only 200 health. She had bubble up still, and you still shot into it. That was like another game sense issue where tanks are good to look at. Indeed, they are. But Zarya's or your counters are not great to look at. Looking into a Winston's eyes or looking into a Zarya eyes as a Genji is guaranteed death, and you should almost never do it. Any character that directly counters you, Genji, you need to stay away. You need to try not to be in their line of sights and try not to be too close to where they can do damage to you. Characters that have beams are a must to stay away from Genji. You just do not want to be close to them at all. Unless you know for a fact you could do enough damage. The only character I can say for a fact that's good enough for you to do damage against that is okay, even though she's a beam character, is probably Symmetra. But as long as you know for a fact that turrets aren't up around her, if you know for a fact the turrets aren't up around her, and you feel confident enough to where you can swift strike into her and hit those three shurikens onto her head and kill her, then sure, take that engagement. But characters like Mei, like Winston, and like Zarya, you should just stay clear of. You should not try to worry about them as much. You could try poking damage after they use their cooldowns, but don't try to take that duel too serious because that duel is really hard to win as Genji if you don't have ult. Um, so looking at the soldier right here was actually a lot more beneficial than looking at this high charge Zarya and moving forward as much as you did. Because again, you were back here. You could have easily moved over to this side right here on this corner, fired out this at the soldier, but you decided to move from here all the way up here to go and get in range of the Zarya. So you kind of just fed your brains out right there. But again, mistakes are mistakes, and you're gonna make them until you do eventually do get the hang of your character and understand them a little better. But just remember, don't try to take those duels too serious. I mean, you do have a Roadhog right here that could easily just hook Zarya and kill her, or you can help him kill her if he does hook her. Um, you don't need to rely too much on your own damage to kill these people. Kill the DPS, kill the healers. Genji is so much better at doing that than killing tanks. Poke at tanks to get ult. That's all you need to do. Poke at the Roadhog as much as you want. Just try to stay out of range of his hook. But poke at him to get your ult up so you could kill literally his entire backline. Um, another thing I want to kind of talk to you about. Um, this actually has nothing to do with you personally. In fact, you did relatively pretty fine there. the only thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to speaking to your team, whenever you're doing that specific type of play, tell your team to get on the cart. If you know you're going to grab Blade, make sure you get your entire team to get on cart. If you're going to kill them, kill when your team is on cart. Okay, this is I'm not even joking. This is probably the most important thing I'm about to tell you. This game has a system where if you kill people on point or kill while on objective, why they have two different types of labelings for eliminations and objective kills. There's a reason why that is. If you kill people while your team is on objective or while even you are on objective, you increase the respawn timer of the enemy team. So, to give you a good example, this is what happens. Whenever one person's on point, on objective, and you get the kills, it increases their respawn timer by a second. It's not a long time at all. A second's not a long time at all. But if you kill while there are 3 people on objective, they get an additional 10-second respawn timer. If you kill while all 6 are on point, they get an additional 15, I think it's 15 to 20-second respawn timer. Meaning this entire fight that you just did and the fight that you're still going to continue doing, because I think this ball contest for even a little bit longer, would have never even happened if your team remained on point while you did that ult, because you literally killed every single person, or not you, but your entire team killed every single person in that grab and the out on the damage afterwards. Killed every single person. I think probably except for one person. But they all came back instantly, as you saw, right? They all came back instantly. You want to know why? Because since nobody was on objective except for you, the respawn timer was only a second longer. 1 second, boom, done. It's gone. Then they're back. It's called an insta spawn. Um, so that is probably the most important thing I'm gonna possibly ever tell you inside this entire video that will drastically change how these fights go. If you want to win faster and want to win a lot more smoothly and literally hard carry your entire team, tell your team once you're going to do a big play to be on point when you do the play. Because those respawn timers will ramp up and they won't have another chance to recontest. And then the fight will just never happen and then you just straight take the point. I promise you, this is probably one of the most important things I never see plats do, I never see golds do, I never even see low diamonds do. And this is probably one of the most important things in the entire Overwatch algorithm. How it thinks and how it's supposed to determine whether or not your team is truly carrying is how you play objective. This game is an objective based game and not an elim based game. It's very much objective based. Remember whenever you got all those kills on those people and just before, like the other blade that you did just before, and they still came back relatively quick? That was because I think only 2 people were on point whenever you got those kills, compared to having the rest of your team and only Mercy on you. So that meant 4 people and then you and Mercy. So 4 people on point, and you and Mercy went out to go get kills. But no, it was only 2 people on point and 4 people fighting the rest of the team. So it made them to where the respawn timers were not as long, and they immediately came back basically. And y'all had just a small little scuffle to where they contested for like a couple more seconds. Those again, seconds are very vital in Overwatch. Every second matters. Every single second. So for you to save seconds by just remaining on point while you get those kills are incredibly huge. So please remember that. Next time you're going to do a huge play like that, tell your entire team to just push forward onto the point. Or even they could have remained on the other side of the point while you were just busy doing all the damage. But they, instead of having them all just sit back on bridge, because it is a Zarya ult, so all of them can look into it and do damage. So just absolutely remember that. That is super important in this game for quickly winning fights. But yeah, just remember that. Other than that, that blade was relatively okay because you did kind of swing into a grab. Like how much more can I talk about skill there whenever you're just swinging into some stationary enemies. Um, but yeah, just remember that. That's super important. Distancing. Like I said, your distancing is really, really, you're really pushing it. Like you see that they have a Roadhog, you see that they have a Zarya. You got saved by your Zarya, actually, or Bubble. I believe her Bubble literally saved you here. Um, you need to work on distancing. Distancing is super important, man. You do not need to be up that far. You do not need to be up that close. You do not have a shield. All you have is Zarya. So it's a one-time save, and if that save doesn't work or fails to help you, you just fed, and now the enemy team has free push. Also, you were just before that, you were telling the hog to sit behind the corner. I know I kind of skipped past it, but I did, like I said, I did watch this a little bit. You kind of tell your hog to sit right there in that corner. You could have done the exact same thing. You're Genji. You're not a front line. You're supposed to be peeking out and poke damaging, so you get your blade. You don't need to be in the front line doing all the damage. You need to be kind of sitting back and being a little bit unpredictable, poking at the enemy, building ult, and that's your job. That's all you need to do as Genji. You don't need to be up in the front line trying to attack everybody. It's just not what you're supposed to do. But yeah, work on distancing, man. Distancing is super important, man. You get hooked way too many times, and you get killed by the Zarya way too many times. Just because you walk into them or your distancing is just not good. Other than that, not really much else to say here because he kind of did deflect as soon as he grabbed you, and your Zarya did save you. So another thing you're clearly showing here is not awareness of enemy cooldowns. Um, you did you did call out Roadhog no breather, but Roadhog's not the only person you're supposed to be working out cooldowns on. You're working on everybody else's cooldowns. You didn't realize that Moria had fade there, and she faded. Um, Obviously this is like not like a super high tense situation here, but um, you could have died by doing that. That Ana was coming back. She could have slept you as you dashed because she knew for a fact you'd have no way of going back. Um, and Azaria could have also looked at you and started lasering you down. Again, this is just talking points from a higher ranks perspective where These are just play mistakes on the enemy's team uh, that are not punishing you good enough, which is why I think that it's really hard to truly see how you could be doing if the enemy team had a little bit more awareness of what you're doing as well. Um, Other than that, this is okay. Shot calling could be a little bit better here. You stop and hesitate a lot whenever you call out characters instead of just saying like overextending or they're way too far left or way too far right or right in front of you. You should try to just say get Ana left side Ana, or even Ana, because then they just look for wherever Ana is, attack Ana. You don't have to say things like, oh, Ana overextended, or Ana is too far left, too far right, Ana uh, uh, backside, or anything like that. You don't have to say that. Don't try to be too complicated with your shot calls, because shot calls are meant to be straightforward and to the point. Like, get Ana left side, or Ana are way better than Ana overextended, because that actually gives your team no info. Ana overextended is your personal opinion, because Ana wasn't super overextended. It was just because you were super far forward, so she looked like she was overly extended. Um, you were just really far forward. Um, yeah, she was left side, but that's actually a relatively normal spot for Ana to be sitting, or even back left is a relatively normal spot for Ana to be sitting. It's not really overextended. You're just super far forward, so she just looks overextended, and you're making your tanks, I believe, are right behind you, making space. So that way, again, it makes it look like she's overextended, but she's not superly overextended. Um, but yeah, just try to make your shot calls a little more precise, rather than just saying on overextended. Just say something that will get your team's attention onto Ana. Don't try to come up with something super complicated to say. Again, like I said, distancing not great, and not only that, but even if let's say your distancing was okay there, you're not wall climbing enough on the left side of your wall, so the hog was easily able to recognize your patterns and be like, oh yeah, he just used deflect. He's a fucking free hook. Make yourself a little more unpredictable. You're just kind of double jumping, double jumping, double jumping, double jumping, double jumping. Sometimes just single jump. Sometimes wait for the double jump. Sometimes immediately double jump. Sometimes space out the jump. Sometimes jump to high ground for a little bit, then jump off high ground. Sometimes wall climb on the high ground while jumping. Sometimes double jump and then wall climb. Sometimes just walk over to a wall and wall climb and then jump off the wall. Try to make yourself as unpredictable as possible. Don't get yourself into a rhythm of just double jumping, because it's so predictable, because you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and then people are going to know that you're doing it, and then they're just going to hook you, or they're going to laser you, or they're going to shoot you, and you're just going to be an easy target for them because you're so predictable. That's why you said good tracking. I think you said good tracking before on the Zarya. That wasn't good tracking. It was just predictable movement that you were doing. You were doing very predictable movement, so she knew exactly where you were gonna go. So she just kind of looked in your general direction of where you were gonna fall and where you were gonna land. It's not necessarily good tracking because tracking on a console is incredibly easy because we have heavy aim assist. Um, so yeah, that's just something you really need to think about is Genji. Genji need to be an unpredictable bastard. You don't need to be getting into a rhythm of doing the same things. Because people can easily punish those things as long as they realize what they are. You gotta realize in higher ranks, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for repetitiveness or accidents or mistakes. It doesn't matter how small they are. We look for them and we find them and we exploit them. And then we just use them to our advantage of like, oh, this person plays like this, so I know exactly what I'm gonna do to counter it. When you're in higher ranks, dude, from I would say even from masters to above, you got to realize that people tend to see these issues like super quick. We realize what they are really fast, and we can exploit them. You are in a lower rank, but I'm going to assume you want to get into a higher rank. You have to start thinking about that. The more and more you start thinking about thinking as a high level player, the more and more the better you're going to be for whenever you do get that high. Don't try to let these complexities get in the way of why you're low rank. Um, these are relatively easy things to fix, relatively easy things to do. They're just more of a mental thing. It's more of like you have to kind of get over doing it and then just kind of start doing other stuff now. You just have to get into that mindset of like, oh, I do this way too much or I do this way too much. You just need to start thinking about that. Please do, because it is very noticeable whenever you do the same things over and over again. Okay, biggest thing I wanted to complain about in this entire time whenever you use that blade was I already picked it up last time. I looked at it and I was like, oh man, dude, he didn't even do that. Um, you never once looked at immortality, and that's why you didn't kill anybody. You just kind of swung at people, keeping them low, dude. There is a thing called the hitbox of your blade. Okay, your blade hitbox is incredibly large. It's a huge, huge hitbox. Probably about as big as Reinhardt's hammer. Um, So what you want to do is whenever they use immortality, because I was confused about why you didn't just target McCree, because yeah, he had bubble, but while you're using blade, you need to think more of like, oh, how and what am I gonna kill? So you could have you could have swiped, dashed, swiped on the McCree and he would have died because he was already low HP. You already got him low HP. Um, but other than that, the fact that you just kept swinging at BAP and not swing at his lamp and him at the same time. So what you could have did, just keep this in mind for next time you encounter a Baptiste ult, or not Baptiste ult, Baptiste immortality field, um, when playing as BAP, is you can hit people and the immortality at the same time. So the trick is you want to look down at them, double jump over them, swing to where you hit them and the immortality field at the same time, then swing again, and it will break immortality field. I promise you, it will break immortality field. I think if you, because I think he goes, yeah, I think he does exactly the same thing as Reinhardt. He goes like from right to right to left to right whenever he swings his blade. So if you hit the immortality field first, immortality field would go down, and then you hit them and it kills them. So you got to remember that, man. You have to be killing immortality field if you're using blade, because if you don't, you're just not killing anything. They're all just gonna be alive, just sitting there, standing, going, no, yeah, I'm chilling. Immortality Field's gonna protect me. You got to remember to do that, man, because you got literally no kills that blade. That blade could have been so good as long as you looked at Mortality and kept swiping at the BAP. If you did that, you would have killed BAP, moved over to the next person, and then killed them. But instead, you just kept swiping at it in an immortal BAP, just trying to keep him low HP, I guess. It's not the best idea, not the best thing to do, because you could have killed them easily. But that's probably my biggest concern and issue with that whole blade right there, because that could have been a lot better and a lot more uh, fluidly executed. Obviously, I get it. You are a lower rank, and specific things like that you probably don't even think of, but you really need to start thinking of them. If you want to climb high, especially as Genji, because he is a mechanically intensive character, if you want to climb high, you have to think about that stuff constantly in your head. If this thing happens, I do this. If this happens, I do this. If this person plays like this, I play like this. You have to constantly be thinking about that like Genji, because Genji is a very counteractive character. You want to just kind of counteract what they're doing almost every single time. Counteract, counteract, counteract. You don't want to play into what they're doing ever as Genji, because you're very easy to exploit. You're very um, un I would say unthreatening character. You're a very unthreatening character because all of your kit relies heavily on mistakes on the enemy team to do your own damage. Also, target selecting with your blade right now is not the greatest. Um, Something you should seriously work on is who you should target the most whenever you use blade. Targeting tanks when using Genji blade is not a great idea. Always focus squishies. Always focus any type of character that you can either two hit, or one hit and then swift strike. Never try to target somebody that has that much health, because it's gonna take forever to kill them, and you're just never gonna kill them, especially if you don't have damage boost or nano. So just remember that. Target selecting is very important. I saw you try to go more for more there, and you kind of lost her because I think you thought you could have did a 180 on her. Don't try to do 180s too much on console. I mean, you can, but you have to up your sensitivity is super high. Because right now your sensitivity is not high enough to do 180 that cleanly yet. That's another reason why I say to do the Hanamura practice, because the Hanamura practice actually you can help. It can actually help on your 180s because you can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between two different people while using Dragon Blade. But other than that, don't try to do 180s too much. Try to focus more on people that are in front of you. It's a lot easier to see and target them. And instead of dashing into a Moira, because you already know, I don't know if you know, because again, game sense is not super high with how you're playing with it right now. But Moira probably usually would save her fade right there in that instance, because your team didn't push up onto them and give them any type of pressure. So she definitely had fade still in off cooldown. So dashing into a Moira that had a fade off cooldown is not the greatest. You probably should have dashed Again, up onto cart, and then looked for your next target. You used blade a little bit later, not whenever you did, to try finishing off a hog because your teammates had easily finished him off. You should have used your blade to get onto point. Blade dash towards the cart. Sorry, dash towards cart. Blade. Then while falling, find the next target because I believe their Ana got out of there scot free. I think I'm pretty positive about that. Hold up, let me just do a little retake. Sorry, not Ana. BAP. BAP. That's what I meant to say. Okay, I wouldn't say that last push was necessarily too much your fault, but you could have saved it if you saved Blade. Because again, like I said, Blade was not exactly necessary there, but you did use it. So I was just trying to tell you the best way to use it in that instance, since you literally got no kills with it again. So far you gotten two Blades that have got no value, and you could have used Blade when they pushed by waiting for your team, regrouping just a little bit, and backing off because two people did push forward and did die. You could have backed off a little bit, waited for your team, tell your team to regroup into the small room, waited for your team to come back. When your team came back, then used ult onto them because your team did have Grav. You did have Grav Blade ready and prepared, but you used Blade the last fight after y'all were already up plussed. Blade is to be used aggressively whenever you have no advantage or not very slight advantage. Not whenever you have the complete advantage because y'all killed two people on the enemy team. That's a huge advantage. 6v4 is pretty hard to win. I saw 4v6 is really hard to win. Pretty hard to win. So you didn't need to use Blade, and that pretty much cost you that fight. That's the main reason why y'all weren't able to recontest the second time. I mean, Sombra could have did a little bit better job to where she could have placed her translocator back here behind these cylinders over here because she did have both healers here. She could have placed her translocator right here behind cylinders. Um, Went behind the cart, uncloaked, shot a little bit to build up because she already had EMP build, but just contest to slow down the cart, and then teleport back, do the same thing, just keep repeating it because that's what Sombras should do. But I don't really see them to do that too much. But yeah, that entire fight could have been won if you would have saved Blade, that and told your team to back up. So um, that's again a game sense issue, I guess. Sorry, I guess that is a gaming sense issue that you kind of need to fix. You need to think about a little bit more about the entirety of the fight rather than just the one fight because the one fight could be won, but you lose the entire game. So once again, just using Blade just because you wanted to. You 100% could have held it there because your entire team was dead. You don't try to bleed an entire team. You just said diamond level Genji. I mean, your aim is again. I'm guessing that you're probably talking about the practice range because it's probably helping you train your aim a little better. Your aim is relatively okay because 29% weapon accuracy is not great with Genji. I would say higher than average Genjis or even like the best Genjis usually have around 35% or 36% weapon accuracy. So there's like still like a bit that you need to like aim a little better with. Um, Oh, what's the time of this match? I can't really see that well. It's 12 minutes, 18 seconds. So 15k damage in 12 minutes, 18 seconds is pretty good. I mean, that's relatively pretty good. But that needs to go down. Your deaths, your deaths need to go down. Um, you should not be dying this much as Genji. Uh, but yeah, you did pretty well. You're doing pretty well. But that solo blade into their entire team, that was a big blunder. Um, I mean, you are winning, right? I mean, but you gotta think about the entire game and not that one fight because I'm guessing you probably sent me this clip, you probably sent me this video because you won. Um, but you gotta think about what if you lost because you just used that. Yeah, you have to kind of think a little bit because you got to remember that they still are all on cart and they're currently pushing it. But yeah, again, all that stuff right there was relatively okay. But you kind of have to think more about what you could have done with that blade because again, again, again. I always hear so many people tell me this at the end of every game that I play in low ranks. But we won, didn't we? But we won, didn't we? Why are you complaining? We won. Okay, winning is not everything, okay? Sometimes you win due to a certain set of circumstances. Most of the time, whenever you do pretty big mistakes, you need to reflect on those mistakes the most. Like, as in, like, what made you think that doing that was okay? Um, and how could you not do that in the next game? How could you not do that in the next 10 games? How could you do that in the next 127, 800 games, dude? So you gotta think about that the most. Is that even if you do win, even if you think you're doing good, just know that there's probably still mistakes you're making because of the rank that you're in, the low rank that you're in. There are probably mistakes that you're making. I pointed out a lot of them. I'm just gonna go over just a last time final synopsis of everything that you need to learn about and everything that you need to do when playing Genji. Next time you feel like playing Genji, next time you feel like playing Overwatch, kind of think about these things. So, firstly, positioning. Don't try to be over aggressive and try to distance yourself from people that counter you. Always. Always, always. That's a very important thing when playing Genji. Two, be unpredictable. You were constantly the entire time in front line. You were constantly the entire time when you were low HP dashed forward. You were constantly the entire time in front of the enemy team, or whenever you used blade, dashed into their team. You were very, very predictable. Everything that you did was super predictable. You got punished a couple of times for it, mainly because of the rank you were in. If you were in a higher rank, you got punished every single time you did it. But you got punished a couple of times for it, and I hope that you kind of noticed that because you kind of did say, "Oh, sorry, my fault, my fault, my fault," on that first time you died by dashing into their team when you could use the dash to run away from their team and go into your team and get heals. Um, that's very important. It's being unpredictable. Super, super important when playing Genji. Uh, 3 is learn how to use Dragon Blade a little better. Use it a lot more conservatively and use it more towards winning fights and also target picking when using it. Those all super important things whenever it comes to using Blade, so that all just kind of falls into the category of just use Blade better. Again, do the Hanamura practice. You can easily find it if you go look at Necros. Look up Necros's Hanamura practice or Necros Genji Blade Hanamura practice or whatever. It'll show the code that you can do in the workshop. You can do it on console. I would recommend using that if you want to learn how to go from target to target to target to target to target a lot better with Genji, and also learn how to target pick and also learn how to uh, keep your blade in a singular forward moving motion so that way you're not always just sitting in one spot whenever you're using it too. Um, then another thing I have to say is the fourth talking point, and this goes along with the tips that I was giving before, but the whole killing people while on point and telling your team to be on point when you're getting kills is so incredibly important. I'm just going to put that up there as one of the top things that you need to work on, is telling your team that whenever you're going to do a big play, to remain and stay on point when you are doing it. Because those respawn times are going to be a lot longer, and the team fight afterwards probably wouldn't even happen if your entire team was on point while that happened. And then I'd say the fifth one is try your best to not stack. Um, Getting a single person to play with is not bad. Like a single healer to play with is not bad at all, especially when playing Genji. Obviously, you know you want to have some type of healer that's going to listen to you, whether it be a Moira player, Mercy player, or Ana player, or even Zen player. Just try to stack with only one person. Don't try to fully stack. Um, because it feels like on the enemy team that they were just having a really bad time and they just were not communicating at all, and that's the main reason why you were able to do all those mistakes that you did, but still not get barely even punished for them because the enemy team just wasn't talking to each other basically. Um, but yeah, those are probably the biggest 5 points I have for this, and that is what I genuinely think that you need to work on. The sixth one I'd probably put in there just as a throw in as a part of the tips that I was going to say. The fifth one is the controller key bindings. Please, please change X off of your jump button. Please. I believe it is X. I think it is X. And it probably is X. Please change it off X. Have it on L1 or L2. And then try to like find out what other key bindings work a little better for you. If you're not super comfortable with it at the beginning, sorry about the yawning. If you're not super comfortable with it in the beginning, just practice with it. Go into quick play. Keep playing quick play until you get incredibly good at it. But don't, don't use X as your jump when playing Genji. You are severely limiting your ability to aim while jumping, and jumping is a huge part of Genji's kit, and wall climbing is a huge part of Genji's kit. So please just change it. It's going to be hard to get used to at first, but it's gonna help you a lot more in the long run because your aim is seriously getting that huge deficit to where whenever you're jumping, you have to swap between the two between aiming and jumping, making it just so much harder to properly track and aim at people when jumping, which is probably why your weapon accuracy was seeing it was seeing a relatively big dip, is because your aim while jumping is just not great because you have to swap back and forth between each other. So just do those 6 things, and I promise you will climb, because overall your Genji um, understanding and Genji, I guess, practice is relatively okay. Is relatively good. I mean, you showed some good moments when using blades. Um, you showed some good moments when using blades, but you really need to work on blade. Blade is probably the biggest thing. When it comes to actual mechanically wise, that's probably the biggest thing you need to work on is blade and target picking. But you show um, genuine excitement for playing this game. And I promise right now, if you go over um, these things I'm talking about and kind of just um, reflect on them, you will progressively get better if you do all these things. And you will start to see it in not only in your rank but also in the plays that you'll do, because you'll just start doing even crazier plays. You start getting 6-man blades, you start getting 5-man blades without nano boost, without mercy pocket. Trust me, I was doing the same thing where in the beginning my actual Genji, because my actual rank is GM on console, it's at a 4132. And I play hit scans mostly. I barely even play projectile heroes. In fact, the only projectile hero I ever played all the way up to GM was Hanzo, and that was way back in season 5. So I don't even play projectile heroes. But when I played Genji in the beginning on my Genji One Trick account called I'm So Bad at Genji, my Genji was gold, like you are right now. That's just because I didn't understand how Genji worked. But the more and more I practiced with them, the more and more I got better at using Blade. I literally almost consistently with every single blade that I got would get 5-man or 6-man entire team wipes, even without mercy boost or nana boost. Um, and I quickly went from gold all the way to low masters in the course of 2 seasons from just practice. So I feel like you definitely could do it. You just gotta have the dedication to practice enough, and also take into please take into consideration what I've talked about here. It really will help you. I promise you, it really will help you. But yeah. Other than that, I mean, thanks for sending me your clip, man. Thanks for choosing me to review your clip. I really like coaching people and I really like helping people. I hope you find everything inside this guide or everything inside this VOD, VOD review, incredibly helpful, and not at all like uh, demoralizing, as in like, oh man, I feel like I did incredibly good that game. This happened. I was doing so well. Like you got to remember, even when you're doing well, especially in low ranks, sometimes there usually are issues. I'd probably much rather like it if you sent me clips or videos of you actually losing, so it's a lot easier to tell when you're doing stuff wrong, because even you start to notice it. But whenever you're winning, it's a lot harder for you to notice when you're doing wrong, even if you're doing a lot of things wrong. But in low ranks, you just don't really see it that often. So, thank you. Thank you for sending me your clips, and I hope this helps, dude. Uh, but yeah, have a good one, man, and continue overwatching and climb that ladder.